right, well, welcome everyone. It's now 7 o'clock and we'll get started with the third of our 6 in a series of our Nova East, the COVID-19 edition, being presented by Halifax Centre. I'm Judy Black. I'm the president of the Centre this year, as well as the chair of the Nova East Planning Committee. As many of you are aware, because of COVID, many events have been canceled and ours was one of them. This session is being recorded and will be available in probably the next 24 hours on our website, which I will post the link to it in the chat window so that folks can have access to it. The previous 2 talks by Kathy Walker and David Hoskin are currently already posted, and so this will be, you can view them there. As well, you can certainly go to our, and to find us, you just go to YouTube and search for RASC Halifax to find the videos. I believe there are also links from our website as well, which leads me to our website, which has all sorts of exciting stuff about us in terms of our meetings, our activities, our observatory, all that sort of fun stuff. And our next meeting of our center is on September the 12th, Saturday, September 12th at 1 p.m. Atlantic. In Ottawa, that'd be 12 noon. The Nicole Mortolero is our guest speaker for that. She's the senior science editor or writer at CBC. She's the editor-in-chief at the Journal of the RASC, and as well as an amateur astronomer. So we're looking forward to listening to her talk to us when she arrives on the 12th. As I said a moment ago, you can look to our website to find out what's happening at Nova East. Also, thanks to Jenna Hines, the announcement of these sessions is also on the what's happening at the RASC each week, so that you can hear about us that way as well. As part of Nova East, there is an astro imaging contest. I will make note that the contest there is a proviso as to who can submit. And it is to those members of RASC Halifax Centre, as well as any resident of Nova Scotia. So those of you from away, I apologize, but unless you become a permanent resident of Nova Scotia or a member of our centre, you're excluded from this. The criteria for the contest is also on the website, so you can view it there. And as with all of our Nova East sessions, there are t-shirts involved. And this is no exception, despite the fact we won't be showing them off in person. Thank John Reed, one of our members, for developing this design. This is the third, I believe, in one that he has done for us, third or fourth. As you can see, the theme of our Nova East was March of the Planets, and as you can see, they're all aligned, and the t-shirt shows the planets as they would be aligned this coming weekend at our Nova East, which was supposed to be this weekend. But as you can see, it was COVID canceled. If you would like one of these, and you can order it in any size and in any color you wish, just go to our website and it tells you how to do so. There was one special announcement I would like to make about one of our members. It's about Melody Hamilton, a member of ours from Digby. Melody recently received her Isabel Williamson Lunar Observing Certificate. It's the 6th certificate from RASC that she has received. She only has one more to complete, and that's the Deep Sky Challenge that she is missing from her repertoire. But otherwise, she has all the other 6. She has spent, I believe, about 3 years completing the Isabel Williamson program, and comments that it really is a really great follow-up to the Explorer of the Moon, which is sort of an introduction to the moon, but Isabel Williamson gets you into a little bit more detail into the various craters and features of the moon. So well-deserved congratulations to Melody. Just want to also note that she's the 3rd Atlantic Canadian to receive that certificate, Dave Chapman being one and Ted Dunphy from the New Brunswick Center being the other. So on that note, I think I will hand things over to Dave Chapman, who will be our moderator for tonight's session. And so take it away, Dave.
Well, thank you, Judy. Nicely done, as always. Welcome to RASC, the next generation. I just thought before I came, we should have had some theme music, I think, for this talk. Anyhow, we're doing things a little differently now, today. Normally, we would just introduce the speaker, and the speaker would give a talk with slides and whatnot. But after discussing with the two individuals who are going to be highlighted tonight, we decided that it would be better to just have a conversation basically between myself and Fiona and Keegan. And Fiona and Keegan are two youth members of Halifax Centre. And we just thought this would be a better format for how we're going to do things tonight, rather than to prepare, you know, a slide talk. Now, they will be sharing some pictures. Anyway, it should be fun, a little bit different from the things we've done so far. Now, so just to kick things off, what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask the two individuals, Fiona Morris and Keegan Oickle, just to say a little bit about themselves personally, who they are and where they're from and that. And then Keegan has a little message from the sponsor, I guess. He asked for some time to do a little announcement, and then we'll get into the presentation or the conversation in all of its seriousness. So I'm going to start by putting Fiona on the spot. And Fiona, can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where you live, where you were born, that sort of thing, where you go to school? Take it away.
I'm 16 years old. I live in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, and I go to school at Spring Hill High School. And I was born in Truro. I've been into astrophotography for 2 years.
Okay, that's good. How about Keegan? Keegan, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
So yeah, I live on the South Shore in Liverpool, Nova Scotia, and I've been a member of RASC for a year and a half now, and I've been interested in astronomy probably since I was like 5, and took my first image maybe 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess I've known Keegan a little bit longer than Fiona. I'm not sure how long I've known Keegan. Keegan started showing up at RASC Halifax meetings maybe a couple of years ago, year and a half ago, and he and I would talk at the break and so on. And Fiona sort of popped out of nowhere last spring, late winter last spring. All of a sudden, I noticed that there was this young lady, Fiona, who was doing some amazing photography, and she ended up coming to actually the very last meeting that we had, a physical meeting. Both Fiona and Keegan were there, and I got to meet them face to face, which was very nice. So Keegan, you had something you wanted to say because you're involved in a new committee of the RASC. Is that right?
Yeah, so it's a brand new committee, the Next Gen RASC committee. So it's essentially a new committee headed by youth members of the society. And essentially, we have our first meeting next week, and essentially what we're going to do is just try to bring the society to a lot more youth and really make more young people feel like they have a place in this hobby, because there obviously aren't many kids my age and Fiona's age involved in astronomy, and it'd be really cool to change that. So
what's the name of the committee again?
The Next Gen RASC committee.
Okay. How did you come up with that name?
It might have been something Jenna came up with.
Okay.
I'm not sure.
It sounds an awful like the title of this talk tonight. Yeah. Well, that's great.
Is there any thought to looking at younger folk, like elementary school activities as well? Not just teenager activities? Or is that down the road, way down the road at this point?
That is down the road. We have our first meeting next week, so I just kind of wanted to put it out there for everyone, let everyone know that was in the pipeline.
That's great. Congratulations, Keegan.
Yes, thanks.
I just wanted to say that my first involvement in RASC when I was 15, when I was in Ottawa, the Ottawa Center, and that was 1968. But we used to go to meetings. There were 2 meetings a month. There was the regular meeting, which was all very serious and scientific, and people wore jackets and ties and everything. But then there was something called the Observers Group meeting, and that's where all the younger people went. And there were quite a few youth involved in those days. And we would go to those meetings and we would talk about observing and cook up ideas. And one of the people that I looked up to at that time was a guy named Ken Hewitt-White, who was a columnist for Sky News for many years. So we knew each other when we were young and did stuff together, like observing meteors and whatnot. And then we went our separate ways, but he's out in BC now, but we keep in touch. But certainly at that time, there were a lot more young people involved in the hobby. And so it's good to see that there's some initiative in that direction. So I had a bunch of questions I was going to pose to both Keegan and Fiona. I guess we'll go back and forth. So Fiona, what I wanted to ask you is, how did you get involved in what you do? Like what's your story there? Like what motivated you to start taking pictures of the sky and how long ago was that?
I'd say it was about 2 years ago, around this time. I'm really into like science and stuff, and I was following National Geographic on Instagram, and I seen one of their pictures. It was of the Milky Way. I was blown away. So I was like, wow, I can't believe you can actually take pictures of the stars. So I asked Mom about it, and I knew we had an old camera, and so she taught me how to like switch the settings, and I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos on how to do it, and I just went from there.
So were you already a bit of a photographer already at that time?
Not really. I took pictures, like some pictures, but they're all on just like automatic mode. I started learning how to use the manual settings.
So were your first pictures more or less a camera on a fixed tripod? Is that kind of picture?
Yeah, just on a camera on the tripod.
Right. So I've seen many of your pictures, maybe all of them. I've seen many of your pictures. I mean, to me, you sort of popped up about, late, or in the wintertime this year. You were sharing things on the Facebook group Astrophotography Nova Scotia. Is that accurate? Is that when you started sharing your pictures?
I think I shared my first pictures, but I don't think they were on any public groups.
Okay. So what kind of equipment were you using when you started?
It was an old Canon Rebel XS with a kit lens and just a tripod.
Right. So as I remember, when I started doing that, there's a lot of learning that has to be done. A lot of, I will say for myself, I made a lot of mistakes when I first started. And learning how to take those pictures was a process of making mistakes and then realizing what things that you shouldn't do the next time. I don't know, what was your experience learning how to take those pictures?
Yeah, a lot of it was trial and error and just trying new stuff and hearing what other people had to say and asking for advice.
So it sounds like the social media, the internet, YouTube had a big role to play in you learning how to pursue your craft of taking pictures of the night sky.
Yeah, pretty much all of it I've learned, besides like at the meeting I attended.
Yeah, because in Spring Hill, Nova Scotia, it's not a very big place, is it? There's not any, probably no clubs or anything you can go to or anything like that.
No, there's about 3,000 people in Spring Hill, and so there's not many people, and I don't think any of them are into astronomy.
So one nice thing about living in a small place in rural Nova Scotia is the skies must be pretty dark.
Yep, very dark.
Yeah. Well, let's switch over and ask Keegan the same question. Keegan, how did you get started doing what you do, and how long ago and what kind of gear were you using when you started?
So I originally got interested in astronomy when I was like really young. I live like 40 minutes away from Keegans, so I attended some of their dark sky events, and one of the things we did we still do every summer is go to the backcountry. And so some of my earliest memories of astronomy are just laying out in the backcountry of Keji, just lying there and looking at the Milky Way and stuff. And in like elementary school, I really started to get fascinated with like the International Space Station. So I came from, like, how I got into astronomy was more on the rocket sciences side of it. So I really, in about grade 6, I was just fascinated with rocket science and read anything I could get my hands on about that and watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube. And then I started getting into the astrophotography side because I'm like, well, I keep seeing these neat pictures. How do I do that? Because those are pretty cool. And my mom is a photographer, so we have cameras lying around, and she has no experience with astrophotography, but she showed me how to use the camera and stuff. So that was, I think I took my first, I'll show it later, but took my very first picture of the night sky in like 2017 or 2018, a few years ago.
Yeah. So it sounds like both Fiona and Keegan, there's a couple of things I'm picking up here. One is that they have very supportive parents who support their interests. And also they are in families that already have some of the gear that you need in order to get started, like cameras and that sort of thing. Does that sound accurate?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, my mom is a scientist and an educator, so like she's very happy I have this hobby as an outlet.
Yeah, and I think Fiona's mom is a teacher, a science teacher. Is that right?
She does science and math.
Okay, interesting. So Keegan, I'm pretty familiar with Keegans. I've been camping there for quite a while. Do you have any favorite sites that you go to there that you like to observe from, or
Mount Tom, I believe it's site 16.
Yeah.
That is, I think that might have been the very first time I had remember seeing the space station. I was probably in like grade 3, and I was lying out on that big rock in front.
I know that.
And my mom had the app on her phone, like, I forget, just one of the Sky Guide, I think was called, and just pointing out different things. And she's like, oh, the space station's coming over. And I'm like, you can see that? Because it was right around the time that Chris Hadfield was up there. And right. I remember our elementary school, he was doing like a live stream, and we all got in the gym and did like an assembly where we watched it. And I was just absolutely blown away by that. I must have been in grade 3 or 4. I'm like, whoa, this is pretty cool.
So do you know Site 15 at all in Keegans on Big News Island?
Yes, yeah, I love that site.
Yeah, it's a favorite of ours too. Jerry and Judy Black and my wife and I have been going to that for a few years. We didn't get to go together this year, but it would have been, I think, the 4th time. But it's got a very nice view of the southern sky, and it's got a big beach. You can get away from the trees, and It's an amazing sight, absolutely.
Yeah, I remember, was it last summer or the summer before that site? It was a really dark night and I slept out on the beach on that site. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, yeah. So is it fair to say that, like you talk about taking pictures, but is it fair to say that you're a bit of an observer as well? Like you observe things in the sky through telescopes and binoculars?
Yeah, I have an 8-inch Dob at my dad's because the skies are darker out there. That I've been working through the Explore the Universe program and just doing some general observing. And like a few weeks ago, neighbors had like a bunch of their kids over, so I brought my Dob over and was showing them Jupiter and Saturn and stuff, and they're all absolutely blown away.
Yeah, it's amazing. So Fiona, I feel that you're more into the photography, but you have some observing gear now, don't you?
Yeah, I bought an old Schmidt Cassegrain off Jerry and Judy, and I've been seeing some stuff out of that, and it's been really cool. I really like seeing the Hercules cluster and the Dumbbell Nebula.
Yeah. So do you think you're going to pursue that a bit more alongside your photography experiences?
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So Keegan said he was working through Explore the Universe. Do you see that in your future?
Yeah, at some point. I'm a little bit busy though right now. I'm hoping maybe over the winter.
Yeah. Yeah. So since I have you on the screen now, can you talk a little bit about your gear that you use for photography now?
Yeah, I use Star Adventure quite a bit, so it's a really portable and small. So when I go out and take pictures of the Milky Way or wide field stuff, I'll go take that around. And my big imaging rig is Celestron AVX, a Space Cat, and a Canon 6D. But I hope to get a dedicated camera soon.
Can you explain to the people who might not know what a Star Adventure is?
It's a mount that you can put your camera on, and it tracks the stars so you don't get any star trails.
So that's really for just like a camera and a fairly modest lens. You can't put anything heavy on that.
I used my Space Cat last night on my Star Adventure, but it was pushing it. I was only getting 1-minute exposures. The Space Cat is about 3 pounds, I think. It says it's rated for 11 pounds for visual, but I think it's pushing it a lot.
Do you have any images or pictures of your gear that you can share?
Yep. I have my Space Cat right here.
That's probably the easiest way. So what part of that is the Space Cat?
The bottom part here, and this up here is my guiding scope and camera.
Wow. So what's special about that Space Cat?
It has really high quality glass, and you can also use it for like wildlife photography.
So how does it differ from a typical zoom lens on a camera, say?
Well, it has really good optics and a good flat field, so you don't have any coma or like vignetting. It's more suited towards astrophotography.
How about you, Keegan? What sort of gear do you use to take pictures?
So for general Milky Way stuff, I have a mirrorless Canon camera, and I have an Ioptron Skyguider Pro. It's essentially a different company's version of the, Fiona's smaller mount. And then I'm currently building a deep sky rig that I hope to have up and running soon. I've been running into a lot of problems with it, but it is it's a William Optical Zenith Star 73. So a refractor telescope with an aperture of 73 millimeters, and then a focal length of 430 millimeters, and guide scope for that, and then a ZWO ASI 120 Mini for a guide camera, and then an ASI 294 MC Pro for the main camera. And I'm borrowing a Celestron C-Gem from a friend, and I finally got the pieces I needed 2 weeks ago for my, finish my rig to put on top of it. So I went to assemble it, and then I realized, hey, I don't have the right size dovetail. So I finally got the right size dovetail in yesterday, and I tried mounting it, but then I realized the counterweight he had was way too heavy for my setup. So now I need to order a new counterweight, but once I have that figured out, I will have that up and running. So
I'll tell you one thing, the equipment that's available and the gear that's available now to people your age is, I mean, when I was your age, it was completely, I mean, that it would have been fantastic to think that you could take pictures with stuff and on your cameras and with all that gear, and then be able to look at them right away. I mean, that was before there were computers and everything. It's just such a big change since I was a youth member. I mean, when I was your age, you know, we were looking through telescopes and trying to sort of find things in telescopes, and that photography was a very distant kind of goal for me anyway. I didn't do any of that till I was a grown-up. So how about looking at, maybe people would like to see some of the images. Who's up with an image? Fiona, Keegan, who's got an image?
I can go first if you'd like.
Yeah.
I'll share my screen. Seeing it?
Oh, wow. Whoops.
Yeah. So I'll start off at the very beginning. This is the very first picture I got when I pointed my camera to the night sky for the very first time, like 3 years ago. I knew nothing about astrophotography. I just knew that you needed to do long exposures. So this was probably 40, 50-second exposure just off my deck up at the night sky.
Is that Gemini?
I don't even remember what time of year I took this.
I'm just trying to recognize something in the stars.
And then a few nights later, took a shorter exposure. And I was very happy. I was over the moon about this photo.
Wow.
The stars were sharp and had a satellite in there, so I was very happy about it.
Can you tell us where that was? Any idea what you're looking at there? I don't recognize anything.
Yeah, I'm not sure.
There's a bit of a star cluster there on the lower left. We can make it like a contest.
Yeah.
Pick out the pictures. How about one more?
And then, so this is my progression. This was 2 or 3 summers ago when I was out at my dad's and I pointed it up. I didn't even know about different regions back then. I just pointed it up at a random spot in the sky and got the North American Nebula. I didn't know what it was at the time.
Wow.
I just brought it. I would have shot this as a JPEG with my mom's probably 130 millimeter zoom lens, and would have brought it into photos on my Mac and just cranked the saturation.
So is that on a fixed tripod, or were you tracking?
Yeah, that was just on a ball-headed tripod.
That's really good. Yeah, so
Fiona, do you want to share some? Because I have a few more.
How about Fiona show us a few?
I didn't think of that to show my progression. If you want to keep going with yours, I have only a few pictures of the recent pictures and some of my gear.
Just go ahead. Show us what you have.
Me or Keegan?
You, Fiona, you go ahead. It's your turn.
Is that working?
I see your desktop. What you need to do is share an image.
Okay.
There you go. Wow. Holy cow, what's that?
That I took this picture a couple months ago of the North American Nebula, and that was with my
Oh, yeah.
big mount, my Celestron AVX, and my Space Cat, and my Canon 60.
Yeah, you're not showing a progression here. You just went to the latest picture. That's phenomenal.
Thank you.
There's so much detail there. The stars are nice points. There's lots of little dark nebulas in there.
Yeah, I struggled quite a bit learning how to use my mount when I first got it, and I'm pretty sure this was my first picture that I got with it, and I was so happy with it.
So is this so you're using your Space Cat and you're guiding on something here?
No, I never figured out my guiding yet. I probably got my stuff a month ago, and just with work and clouds, I haven't got the chance to use it yet.
If you use your cursor, will we be able to see it? Can you point at things in the picture? Does that work?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah, no, I don't think it doesn't show a cursor.
I hope everybody can see the North American Nebula in this image. It's kind of tilted on its side. So if you were comparing it to a map of the world, north would be to the left and south would be to the right, and east would be up. So you can sort of see at the lower part of the picture, that's what they call the North American Nebula. And there's the big sort of gap in it. There is the Gulf of Mexico, which is kind of what gives it its characteristic shape. The nebula that's opposite that gap in the stars there, is there a name for that part of the nebula?
Is it the Pelican Nebula?
I think it might be. I'm sort of seeing, again, if you tilt your head to the left, you sort of see a pelican head beak. Wow, well, that's really good. Can you show us another?
Yeah. This is like the elephant, elephant trunk nebula. That's like the region of it. It's hard to see. I need a higher focal length for this object, but the big old red star or orange star there is the Garnet star, and you could actually see that in Keegan's picture with the North American Nebula. So it's like the same region, like area of the sky.
Oh, is it? Okay. And where's the elephant trunk here? Is it that squiggly thing up to the right there?
It's right in it's almost in the center. It's really hard to see it.
Okay. So off the top of your head, do you know what the field of view is there?
250 millimeters, I think.
No, but how many degrees of sky are we looking at across?
I don't know.
Okay. Well, that's, yeah, you've done a really good job there. I really like seeing those dark nebula against the background.
Yeah, I boosted the contrast quite a bit in this picture.
You got another one?
Yep. This is the Lagoon and Trifid Nebula.
Oh, yeah.
Within the Milky Way. That was with my same setup as the other two. I took, I think, last month again. At my house, there's too many trees in the way, so I have to go to my grandparents. They have a field that I take pictures of objects on the horizon.
I see a question coming in here from, I don't know why Tony Schelling always comes across as Douglas. He probably has an explanation for that. Anyway, he says, what is the exposure time and the number of sub-exposures?
For which one?
This one, I guess.
This one?
I'm guessing, maybe.
Off the top of my head, I don't know. For most of my pictures, I use 2-minute exposure, ISO 800, and the focal or the aperture for my Space Cat is 4.9. So it's a pretty fast lens, so it captures a lot of light. I probably could lower the ISO a little bit. I'm guessing I got like half an hour of exposure time on this image, but I'm not 100% sure.
Seems like a lot.
Yeah, it's enough because the skies are pretty dark there.
Well, that's great. Keegan, did you have some more yourself? Can we go back to Keegan and see what he had? You have to stop sharing, Fiona.
There.
So
I know what that is.
this is my next one. So I took this one last summer. I bought my just small camera tracker, and I really like this photo because it was the first time I actually tried at Astro. So this is a single 5-minute exposure, and I remember seeing it come off the camera, and I was just so excited because it was just the amount of contrast from the raw file and stuff is just beautiful. And this is probably the 4th reprocess of this photo, and I just really like it because it was the first one I took. And then the next one is, well, pretty much the only shot I've taken of the moon. That was back in the early spring, and it was about 3,000 video frames stacked. So I did lucky imaging on that one to get more detail and contrast.
And what was the optics for that?
That was a borrowed Nikon 400mm lens with a 2x teleconverter. So I was shooting at 800mm.
Wow. So one thing you can see in this picture is the moon isn't just black and white. I think you've probably enhanced the colors a bit, but you can see that there, in the lava plains on the moon, there are actually different, there's different colors. It's not all black.
Yeah, I really love the lunar shots where it emphasizes all the different minerals on the surface.
Yeah.
Because it just shows that there's a lot of different dynamic on the moon and stuff. It's pretty neat.
Can you explain what the streaks are on the image?
You mean on the moon, or?
Yeah.
Yeah, so those would have just been the large crater impacts there, just shrapnel, I guess.
Yeah.
So
So there's another question coming in here.
Oh.
Tony Shank again.
Yeah, he says, what software are they using to process these photos, and how do they get such good contrast, darks and light areas?
So for this photo, the exposure time was probably really quick. I wasn't shooting video, but I just had an intervalometer and took a few thousand frames at, must have been like 1/400th of a second or so. And I processed them in a planetary stacking software for Mac called Linkos, and then did all the color work in Photoshop.
Your coloration has certainly really caught Tycho really nicely down there at the bottom of the moon, and all the rays from the ejector right up to the north show beautifully in that photo.
Yeah, it's really good. There's a lot of geology in that picture. I'd also like to point out that the lower right of that picture, there's a dark patch there, which is a lunar sea, which isn't always visible. But on the the time you took this picture, that limb was librated towards the viewer, so you could see it. Whereas most times you wouldn't be able to see it. I think that's Mare Australis. I'm not sure. I have to look it up.
Yep.
Yeah. So lunar libration, it's not a physical rocking of the moon. It's really more the angle we're looking at it, because the motion of the moon around the Earth is a little uneven. So we get to see, sort of peek around the edge of the limb from time to time. That's a good example of this. So I'm going to ask the same question to Fiona after, but I'll ask you, Keegan, while you're here. Have you ever, other than on the internet and Facebook and that, have you published any of your pictures, submitted them to magazines or anything like that?
Well, Fiona can tell her part of this, but I had my previous Milky Way shot published in Sky News a few issues ago, and I wrote a brief summary about it.
Which was the Milky Way, the one that you said you really liked with the contrast?
Yeah, this one.
I'm trying to place myself here. What part of the Milky Way is that? I figure it's somewhere in the summer Milky Way. But...
Yeah, it would have been last year, late August. So it would have been that should be Jupiter there. So it would have been the lower galactic core.
Okay. Yeah, kind of looking for the dark horse nebula there. So you had that article in Sky News. There was a picture, there was a little write-up, I guess, about you. So let's switch back to Fiona, and I'll ask the same question to Fiona.
Yeah, I submitted my photo into Sky News for a contest, and I had a little write-up with it, and they contacted me. Apparently I forgot to put my contact information, and I just had my location. So they got a hold of my high school, and they said, "We got a call for you," and I was like, "What?" And so I answered the phone, and it was Sky News, and they wanted to do an interview on me about my photo I sent in. So I did the interview, and they published it in the magazine, the same one Keegan's was in.
So they kind of did the article, but your photo didn't end up being submitted for the contest.
Yeah, no, it didn't win that.
Okay, well, maybe that's like a consolation prize or something. I think you wrote up this experience as a little essay, is that right? Did you write that up as a little story?
Yeah, for English class, we had to do a memoir. So I wrote about that.
Yeah. How did that go over?
It ended up going good, actually, in the end.
Yeah, good.
It was also published in our center's newsletter, Nova Notes.
I think it's in the one that just was shared the other day, in fact.
Yes, it was the March-April edition.
Right. Which is about the time that we first met Fiona, and when she kind of came onto the scene. Well, that's great. Yeah. So Fiona's got her pictures, and they both got little stories published in a magazine. So that's quite an achievement. So Fiona, where do you think you're going to go with this in the future? Like, you've been really busy the last few months acquiring gear and trying out different things. It's like you don't have enough time off school and work to follow your passion. Where are you going to head with this now?
I'm not exactly sure. I mean, I'm working like shift work with my job right now, and so I know I don't want a job that has shift work, so I get all my nights to myself. But I don't know if I would ever be able to do this professionally. Maybe if I started a YouTube channel and it took off, maybe. But I don't know. This is just a hobby for right now.
Keegan, maybe you could stop screen sharing just for a little bit.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that.
That's okay. There you go. So Fiona, you're 16 now,
Yep.
and you're going into grade 11.
11. Yeah.
So any thoughts about university, like where you might end up there?
I might take a bachelor's of science or something at St. FX or Mount Allison. I want to stay close to home.
Yeah, the dark skies.
Yeah.
And Keegan, how about you? You're about the same age, are you not?
Yeah,
And what grade will you be entering?
11.
Grade 11 as well.
Yeah. I'm not sure. Fiona, do you do French immersion as well? Or?
No, I don't.
So, Keegan, where do you see you taking your hobby interest in astronomy and astrophotography? What lies in your future?
I'd really like, once I actually get decent at it, I'd like to maybe do a bit of YouTube work with it, or I've thought about starting a podcast. I'm really interested in video production, audio production. Me and my best friend have been doing a radio show for a little over 2 years, a weekly show on our local community-run radio station. I really like radio and podcasts as a format, so I don't know what I could do in that aspect for astronomy, but that's something I'd like to explore in the future. Same goes for YouTube, although a lot more people do that, and that's a lot easier of a format to create content for.
What about the RASC? Like, you're on this committee, the next generation. Do you see yourself getting more involved in the RASC as a learned society?
Yeah, definitely. I really, well, one of my main goals with whatever type of outreach I do is really get more youth involved in astronomy and get more youth to join RASC, because it's definitely a very enriching thing. And a lot of kids my age just really don't think about it or even consider it as not only a hobby, but like a future career option to go and do space science.
How about Fiona? Do you see yourself getting more involved in the RASC as a society?
Possibly in the future. I don't know. I live quite far away, so maybe I do like online stuff, and I probably could do some stuff locally. Maybe like set up an observing session for like the town or something to get them let kids see some planets and stuff like that, maybe.
Right. Well, you know, I've come to the end of all the questions and stuff that I wanted to ask to get you guys talking. We're not exactly out of time. We've got a few, about 10 minutes left. So I guess I wanted to throw it out at this point to the participants. If anybody out there has any questions they want to pose or any comments they want to make. I'll put Judy on the spot since she's our host.
Yeah, you'll have to unmute your screens because I've muted you all except for the four of us. So please, if you have any questions or comments, to unmute them yourself. I don't really have a question so much as a comment, in that I'm not an astro imager by any stretch of the imagination, but watching the two of you, Keegan and Fiona, what you've been doing with your astro imaging has blown me away. You are doing the quality of photographs that many imagers across the country have been doing for a while. So congratulations on jobs well done. They're just amazing.
I see David Hoskin there. He's muted himself, but I'm going to put him on the spot because I know he's quite an experienced astrophotographer, and he's given a recent talk in this series. David, I'd like you to say a few words about your reflections on the work that Keegan and Fiona have done. Did you want to?
Yeah, I think it's amazing. I mean, I've just started the nightscape type imaging of the wide field, and I'd really like to get as good as Fiona and Keegan have got some of those shots. So I've actually got a Red Cat 51, which is the equivalent to the Space Cat that Fiona has. It just shipped today, so I'm looking forward to getting out with that, getting some wider field shots. So yeah, they're doing great stuff with you know, good quality equipment. It shows you, but it shows you what some perseverance and the progression, because it's the astrophotography part of it. And I'm sure Blair could elaborate on this, and Jerry too, has quite a steep learning curve, and these guys are just climbing the curve at a fantastic rate.
Well, thanks, David. That's great. I'm going to reach out somewhat at random. I see Diane Cunningham is watching, and I think, if I'm not mistaken, Diane was a recent guest at Nova East maybe a couple of years ago. Gave us a talk about the work that she and her husband were doing.
That's
Diane,
Paula. That's Paula.
Oh, sorry, different Cunningham.
Different Cunningham.
My mistake. Is there anyone else who would like to?
Tony has said it would be fun to do the RASC astroimaging certificates, given what you two are doing. It would certainly, many of those would apply.
Yeah, I was looking at starting that up this winter.
Maybe Tony, you've done this particular astroimaging, so has David. Can you offer them any tips on that?
Yes. As you say, David and I both have done all 3 certificates, and it sort of forces you to focus on different ways of doing astroimaging. And to be fair, they're not that super challenging. They're not assuming you're going to be making perfect pictures. And it was just a lot of fun to work my way through them, and they're well designed. So if you want to progress in this area, it's a good way to, at the start, to get going and sort of work your way through those. So I'd highly recommend it as an interesting part of the hobby.
Well, thanks, Tony. I'm actually very impressed that Halifax Center has, for its size, has done so well, and not only in acquiring observing certificates, but the astroimaging certificates, considering the very questionable weather we have for this kind of work. It's amazing to me that our members have performed so well. So we're kind of coming down to the wire. So I'm going to jump in and say, I'm not primarily an astrophotographer, but I do appreciate good astrophotographs. And certainly nowadays, the equipment and the advice available to people doing this is very accessible. But primarily, I'm an observer, and I think I'll speak for Judy as well. She's an observer. And I would say that alongside of the imaging, I hope that both of you will take time away from the screens and just look at the sky through whatever you have, binoculars, telescopes, and to observe what's there with your eye, photons at the eyepiece kind of thing, as well as the amazing work you're doing with imaging. I know you have the gear, so I'm just going to put a plug in there. I'd like to see you guys, get your Explore the Universe certificate and move on from there. And maybe those two things can go hand in hand, in the sense that you could do imaging and observation at the same time, rather than focus on one or the other exclusively.
Yeah, Melody Hamilton at one point said something to me that kind of stuck. And she said, the one good thing about being an observer, she said, is that you not only get to look at the night sky and maybe take pictures of it, but you also get to know what it is that you're looking at. So that when you look up, you're not just saying the Milky Way, you can say, there's the Sagittarius star cloud, there's M11, there's whatever, so that you can identify the elements of the sky that you're looking at. And that's what's really cool, to be able to combine the two.
Yeah, I'm really lucky
something?
with where my dad lives. Right next door to him is his stepbrothers, and we live under Bortle 2 skies, so they have a massive meadow. So I take my 8-inch Daub out there, and on a clear night, the seeing and resolution is amazing. The skies.
Can I say something here? I've done a lot of astro imaging, but then what I'm doing now is observing with sketching, and I find that very rewarding. And I'd recommend that if you're out there doing astro imaging and observing, that you do give it a try to do sketching. And there's plenty of videos out there to show you how to do it. It's not that difficult, but it's quite rewarding. So you might keep that in mind as well.
Yeah, it forces you to observe rather than to just look at.
Yeah.
Right.
So I think it's time to wrap up. I just want to say to both Fiona and Keegan, we're all very impressed at what you're doing now, and we're really looking forward to what you will do in the future. And as far as this particular episode, the next generation, we were going to do this at Nova East. Now we're doing it this way. And I feel like it was a good idea to do this. I'm really happy that we could highlight the work that you're doing as youth members in the RASC. I believe, I might be wrong, but I believe that it might be the first presentation at a Nova East by youth members. I could be corrected in that, but I don't recall any. And so it's kind of a milestone. I mean, we're not actually at a star party, but we're close enough. And so I want to thank you both for being willing to do this. And I know, maybe it was a bit of a stretch from what you normally do, but we really appreciate you coming forward and sharing your stories with us and your images. And I personally want to wish you very good success in the future. And I thank you very much for taking part tonight.
Thanks for having me. It was lots of fun being here.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, thank you as well, Dave, for moderating this particular session. This is, like I said earlier, this is the third. It will be up on our YouTube channel probably within the next 24 hours, I would venture a guess. The other three are certainly described there. Speaking of which, our next session is next Tuesday night, the 25th, same time, same station. And Tony Schelling will be our guest speaker that evening to talk about astronomy on the cheap. And if you've never heard Tony speak before, this is your chance. This is one of the two men that inspired me 7 years ago to get actually an interest in astronomy because of his binocular table. So he's going to tell us all about binoculars and things you can see with it and how to promote it. So look forward to it next week. In the meantime, for this particular session, if you want to review it or would like to show it again to other youth members in your center, perhaps, for those of you that are from away, it will be on our YouTube site shortly. So please feel free to use it. And so farewell, everyone, and thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, Judy.
Thank you.
Thanks all.
Thank you.